Good morning, everyone. Adam Kowarski here with Save the Bay. We're at Save the Bay's Exploration Center and Aquarium for another episode of Breakfast by the Bay. Hopefully you guys are ready for some fun. Today we're going to be learning a little bit more about sharks and skates. I know Miss Reagan went over a lot of great information about their adaptations. Today we're going to talk a little bit about their life cycle and how they reproduce and how that cycle functions. So the first thing we're going to do, let's take a look at my little drawing I did over here. And this kind of describes a skate's life cycle. All right, so for anyone tuning in and joining us again here, my name is Adam Kowarski, Save the Bay's aquarium biologist. And we're learning about sharks and skates and their life cycle. So let's take a look at my little poster here. So to start with here, this right here is a female skate. And a lot of people actually don't know what a skate is. Do you guys know what a skate is? A lot of people see them and they think it's either a horseshoe crab, a flounder. They might think it's actually a stingray. That's the most common thing I hear, is that people think it's a stingray. So I think it's important to tell the difference between a skate and a stingray. So here's the few differences between them. So a stingray lives in warm subtropical and tropical regions. So kind of south of the Carolinas is when you're going to start to see them more in this part of the world, and much further north than that you start to really see more skates. Skates live in cold waters. They really prefer that colder habitat. Other big difference, skates do not have a stinger. Stingrays have a stinger. Skates have no stinger. They're totally harmless. They can't sting at all. And one of the big differences, stingrays actually give live birth, like people, right? And skates lay eggs, kind of like a chicken, right? So that's some of the big differences between a skate and a stingray. Even though they look a lot alike, there's some pretty major differences. All right, so we can get back to my drawing here. So we have a female skate here, and like I was saying, the female skates, they lay an egg. The egg, they call it, it's an egg case, an egg purse. Another name for it is a mermaid's purse. Really cool name for it, a mermaid's purse. So you can see we got a little one right here, and I have some actual ones that I'm going to be showing you guys in a little bit. So you can kind of see, a lot of people probably find these washed up on the beach and things like that. I know the first time that I had the experience of finding a mermaid's purse, I thought it was seaweed. I had no idea what it was, and I had to look it up and research it to try and figure out what this thing was. And eventually I figured it out. You're going to learn all the cool things that we figured out here. So first you have your mermaid's purse here, and if it's a freshly laid one, you can sort of see the hint of sort of an orangey yellow color, and that's the yolk sac. Just like a chicken has a yolk in it when you crack open that chicken egg, and a mermaid's purse has that yolk as well. So you have your yolk sac, and when it first comes out, you just see that sac there. You don't really see anything inside there, any development. It's basically microscopic, too small for you to really see. And just like in a human embryo, it begins to develop extremely quickly. So if we keep looking here, eventually you get just a tiny little embryo on that yolk there. And then as it develops, I mean, the first time you see it, kind of looks just like a little worm or a little parasite or something like that. It is attached with a little umbilical cord. Again, just how people develop too embryonically. If you look here, you can see the yolk sac in our next stage here. And this might be, 3-4 months in, something like that. And you can see our yolk sac is starting to get a little smaller. You can see it's developed the tail. You can see the kind of formation of the head. And you can see it's starting to get a little fatter in the middle. And then it gets all these funny little strands sticking out. Those are actually the gills. Super interesting. As the gills develop embryonically, they're actually external of the body, and they're just kind of wiggling around inside the yolk sac. And they're starting to function. It's starting to learn how to use its gills, start how to breathe and gain oxygen as well. So if we keep looking here, you can see in the next stage here, the yolk sac gets a little smaller. You still have the umbilical cord, but you see the pectoral fins, which are right here. That's the beginning of the pectoral fins. They're starting to get a little bit bigger, and they're starting to overtake the gills a little bit and starting to develop around it. All right, and then as we move along, you can see we're starting to get some eyes. They're actually starting to develop nostrils and gill slits at this point. And then right here you can see the pectoral fins are getting much larger. It's starting to get the other pectoral fins down here as well. And you can see it's really almost, the fins are almost completely grown over the gills there. The body kind of grows over the gills. And then a really interesting thing happens. So up until this point, the embryo is completely sealed inside that mermaid's purse. But then at a certain point, at the tip of its tail, it actually develops a spine. So I kind of lied when I said skates don't have any spines at the tip of their tail like a stingray. They actually do at a certain point in their embryonic development. So at this point, they have that little spine there, and they actually use that spine to cut a little slit inside of the mermaid's purse. And when they cut that slit, all of a sudden water from the ambient water body that it's in starts to move within the egg. It helps to clean it, remove any waste that might be developing within the egg. But then it also starts to be able to acclimate to the surrounding environment around it. It starts to breathe seawater. It has higher oxygen needs than the yolk can provide, so it needs the oxygen from the water there. You can see the yolk's getting really tiny. And then just before it's getting ready to hatch out, you can see it's really become very developed. The gills are completely within the body. You can see the yolk sac is teeny, teeny, tiny. And then after that, the small skate actually comes right out, and you have a brand new hatchling. So it comes out of the hole that it cut with its little spine there. And when it comes out, it's maybe the size of a quarter. It's teeny tiny, very small. This whole process takes anywhere from 9 to 12 months for them to hatch out, a really long time, actually similar to human development before a human gives birth. So 9 to 12 months. And the reason they have that 3-month kind of buffer there, they can actually stay within the mermaid's purse longer depending on external conditions. So if it's not favorable for any reason, too hot, too cold, something like that, it's getting tossed around too much, it'll stay within the egg purse longer and eventually hatch out if it's ready to. So anytime within that 9 to 12 months, you can see it gets a little bit bigger. And at this point, we would classify it as like a juvenile. And the reason that we wouldn't really call it an adult yet when it's just a little bit bigger here is, one, it's smaller, but two, all of them, when they're born, have the characteristics of a female. So eventually, they start to develop male characteristics, or they stay on their current scheme with female characteristics. All right. So if you take a look here, you can see eventually, as they mature and become adults, they either kind of go through a metamorphosis where they kind of become an adult, a male or a female. And you can see here on the male, the way you can kind of tell the difference, they look pretty much identical, except for if you take a look at the male here, it has these two little appendages, kind of look like two little shorter tails. Those are called claspers, and they're used for mating. And then they mate, lay an egg, the cycle begins again. So that's kind of the skate life cycle there. And this whole life cycle happens here at our aquarium for sharks and skates that we work with. So why don't we go take a look at some of that, and we'll be able to talk a little bit about that. So why don't you guys join me over here?
Beautiful. So Adam, while we're transitioning over here, we do have a couple questions.
Absolutely.
So Jessie said that she loves your drawings. They're super beautiful.
Thank you, Jessie.
And she also wants to know what environmental conditions would make them stay in their egg cases longer.
Yeah, so there's a few different reasons why a skate might stay within its egg a little longer. One, if it's too hot, temperatures are too cold, they're very temperature dependent. That's some of the main things. Or if it's getting tossed around a lot, physical things like that. There might be other chemical cues too that researchers have looked into, but maybe we don't know quite yet. We don't know everything, but we know some stuff for sure. Good question.
Beautiful. And then we have a question from Reagan. She wants to know, does anything eat the skate egg cases?
You know what? There's very few things that make a living off of eating the mermaid's purses. And I wonder why, because it's a lot of nutrition and things like that. Some of the reasons, they're extremely well camouflaged. They're usually laid in different areas where they really kind of stick to crevices or seaweed and things like that, and they blend in really, really well. That being said, I have seen every once in a while certain kinds of snails can get into the eggs. Once in a while, maybe crabs or larger fish might get into there. And one thing to keep in mind, only 1 in 200 skates, or the little skate or the chain cat shark, which we're going to be talking about, only 1 in 200, that's 0.5%, make it to adulthood. So very few of them. So some of the eggs are eaten, a lot of the juveniles are eaten, and eventually maybe one of them makes it to an adult. And it's just a lot of work for these guys. It's important to protect them because they are such a slow-growing species, and so few of them actually make it into adulthood.
Beautiful. And we have another question.
I love it.
So we have a student from Shea High School, and they want to know if there's a reason the skates start off with female characteristics.
Yeah, so they're all born with just the female characteristics, and basically at some point they just go through that metamorphosis where they get the male or female characteristics. I'm not sure exactly why they don't express them immediately. It might take more energy and more resources for the body to produce the male characteristics because it has the external appendages and things like that. I think that would be a great thing to do some more research on. Good question.
All right, I think that's all for that round of questioning, Adam.
Excellent, guys. Why don't we move on to our next little part here? So what I'd like you to do is focus down here. All right, excellent. So hopefully you guys can see what I'm looking at here. So what these are little skate mermaids purses. Okay, so these are eggs that were laid right here in our aquarium. So I'm gonna kind of go through these eggs here and show you a few different developmental stages. So if you're taking a look here, these are in water. We just have a light behind it so you can see. So right there, that's where the yolk is. So you can see that beautiful yolk there, and then around that, that's all the fluids around it as well. So this one here was probably laid this week, to be honest, very recently. You can actually see right here, there's all these connective strands here. Those connective strands are what the skate female uses to kind of stick the egg to different things, so like rocks or seaweed, something like that, to help keep it safe, keep it from getting washed away in the waves and the currents and things like that. So that one there, you know, maybe a week old, something like that. And there's really nothing that we can see with the naked eye on that. If we used a microscope, we might be able to see something that's maybe, you know, a percentage of a millimeter big starting to grow in there. So I'm going to keep moving these down and show you different eggs that I brought over. So if we keep looking here, all right, so this next one right here, I don't know if you guys can see that, but there is just a tiny little embryonic skate right there. He's wiggling and wiggling around. This guy might be a month old, give or take, something like that. All right, and you can see he's got a little tail, right? You can see that umbilical cord attached to the yolk sac, and he's gonna keep growing. All right, so let's keep going. Now, all right. This one here is a little bit bigger. You can actually see, I don't know if you can see his gills in the camera there, but here in person, I could definitely see his little gills sticking out. They're actually red. Really, really cool. So those little gills, like I was saying, are external. You can see his various fin structures starting to form. He's starting to get the beginnings of some eyes there as well, which he'll start to use as he ages. All right, let's go to a little bit bigger here. All right there. Can you guys see that one? Mm-hmm. Great. So that one there is one that's a bit older. You can actually see he's starting to take up a lot of the room in there. He's almost the same size as his yolk sac there. So you can see he's got eyeballs sticking out. He's got his tail sticking out and curling around right there. And you can see a lot more development on this one. All right, let's keep going. This one here is actually probably about the same age, the one that my finger's touching right there. Pretty close. I don't know if you can see much of him, but he's actually on top of his yolk sac there. Oh yeah, you can sort of see it there. You can see his eyes right there, right on top there. Those are developing. You know, guys, this is just an amazing thing. Life is just such an amazing thing on our planet. I love seeing this. It's the coolest thing. All right, let's go check out one more stage here. Now this one here, if you guys can see him, that guy right there, yeah, he's about ready to pop. You can see that his pectoral fin, oh, there's his tail wiggling. How cool, huh? You can see his pectoral fin there is actually folded over within the eggs. He is so big, or she is so big inside there that, you know, he's ready just to burst right out. Awesome, that's great. I love that you can see the eyes, Reagan. All right, cool. So let's go to this next case here. So this one right here, that's an air bubble in there. I don't know if you saw that go out. This one's actually empty. So once he leaves, this is an empty case right here. There's nothing in there, all right? Totally dried out or completely empty, still hydrated because it's in the water, but nothing left in there. All right, cool. So I want to show you guys a few more. So right here, I'm going to move these guys over. Now this is really cool. These ones I picked out of our shark tank today, okay? Now these guys are another type of mermaid's purse, and these ones actually come from an animal called a chain cat shark, which is so cool, chain cat shark. And one of our chain cat sharks, our Save the Bay staff knows this, always, it seems to lay twins. A few weeks ago, it laid double eggs just like this, and it did it again. For some reason, this one's genetically predisposed to laying twins. And you can see, it's really clear, there's not much developing. You can see the yolk there. All right, next, we can see, with the shark egg, you can see another tiny little embryo starting there. Oh, he's wiggling around. All right, let's see. And then this one right here, oh, that's one there. You can see that one's not too developed yet either. But this one here, if you guys can see that, this shark, chain cat shark again, very well developed. You can see his gills pretty well on the side there. You can see that his body is starting to grow over the gills as well. And just like the skate, the gills are actually external as well in parts of its development there.
So Reagan wants to know, why are you keeping the eggs in the water? Can they come out of the water?
Yeah, that's a great question. So these eggs must stay submerged. They need to have the water keeping it at a good temperature. And eventually, especially once they create that slit in the purse there, they need to be able to breathe. If they get exposed to the air and get an air bubble in there, that can actually kill them. So it's super important to keep them in there. Now you can see this last one here is super well developed. You can see his yolk sac is almost totally gone, just like that last skate there. He's definitely about ready to pop. And he's going to hatch out really, really soon. Excellent.
So Janine wants to know, when the skates hatch, are they larger than the sharks?
They're pretty similar size. So the shark, and you know what, guys? Why don't we take a look here? Let me show you.
Ah, okay.
So if we take a look right here, great question, Janine. Let's take a look right here. So I don't know, can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Excellent. So that right there is one that's probably hatched out maybe a couple weeks ago. This guy's actually already grown a bit since he hatched out. When they hatch out, they're maybe about, and this is the chain cat shark, when they hatch out, they're maybe about the size of about half a pencil. You know, they're teeny, teeny, tiny. But you can see this guy. You can see his various body parts. You see his eyes, his gills, all those things are developing. You can see his body is actually straightened out. He's not folded up in there like closed in a drawer. You know, he's able to spread out and do his thing. You can see his pectoral fins, his various fins. And it's just gorgeous, gorgeous. All right, and if we take a look here, this is a skate that's probably about the same age as that shark there. So this guy is probably put on about 30% of its size since he was born, so even a bit smaller than that when they're first born. So here's some that I took right out of our hatchery, so hopefully we can see them a little bit better right now too.
Beautiful. We have a question about what material are the sacks made out of?
You know, that's a really great question. It's a material very similar to chitin, kind of like your fingernails. Okay, so it's soft and it's flexible. These are actually two that are dried up and have washed onto shore there. All right, so these guys here, I don't know. You might see stuff like this when you're scavenging on the beach looking for treasures and things like that. These are some dried up mermaid purses on the beaches. You know exactly what they would look like. I have a fun story actually. So one time I was working with a student. I asked the student, I'm like, all right, what do you think a mermaid's purse is for? And this young student, she said to me, well, it's obviously it's a purse for a mermaid, and she puts her sand dollars in it, and that's absolutely what it's for. You know, and I couldn't correct it. That's too good of an answer. All right, guys, so I think we're ready to go check out our hatchery system and all that over there. You guys want to come follow me?
Yeah.
Right this way.
So we do have a question about how big these guys are when they first hatch out. I know you talked a little bit about it, but do you have specific sizes for us?
So I would have to sit there and actually measure it, but the cat sharks when they hatch out, they're about the size of half a pencil. This is easy information to look up, and I can even look it up later for you guys and post that online if you want to. And again, the little skate, about the size of a quarter, so really, really tiny. These guys are super small, and we're gonna actually be able to see how big they get in a little bit too. So actually, I have our hatchery right here. We can see all of our newly hatched ones. So I don't know if you can get a good close view of any of that, Jess.
Yeah.
Excellent. Oh yeah, so you can see a skate way in the back there. He's moving around. So those are ones that are very recently hatched out. And then on the bottom in the sand, you can see a bunch of our little cat sharks there. This is our brand new hatchery tank right here, where they're all the eggs get to stay safe for for that time, so they're not eaten in the wild. When they hatch out is actually when they're super vulnerable. When they first hatch out, they're so teeny tiny that it's really easy for them to get predated. Most of them get eaten when they're really small like this. So we take the time in this tank to teach them how to eat, give them a really good diet, get them to grow as large as they can. If we look a little bit higher, we can actually see those are all the eggs. So these are all of the eggs that have hatched out, that have been laid by our sharks and skates in the past, up to a year, right? So we have a whole bunch of them here. At this point, we've released somewhere between 200 and 250 skates back into the wild, and probably about 200 cat sharks into the wild, which is just a wonderful thing. And you'll be able to see about how big we get them when we release them in our next tank.
So we do have another question from a Shea High School student, and they want to know what the first thing that a juvenile would eat when they hatch is.
Yeah, so here at the aquarium, we actually give them a blended up formula that has mackerel, herring, squid, butterfish, shrimp, things like that. Again, some people are saying it's a little hard to hear me. So what we first give them when they hatch out is a blended up mixture of mackerel, herring, squid, butterfish, krill, things like that. Now in the wild, they're going to be eating really small crustaceans, shellfish, things like that, really small things. They're also scavengers, all right? What that means is they basically search around in their habitat for something dead and rotting, and they eat that. Can you guys hear me better now? Yeah? All right, excellent. All right, so the next thing I want to do, I want to show you guys what we call our juvenile grow-out tank. So if you look in here, there's a bunch more. I know we got a little glare there. We might look through the porthole if that helps at all. So the ones that are here are the next ones that are going to be released into the wild. You can see all the sharks on the left there, a few different sizes. But basically, we move the animals into this tank once they're able to feed themselves and they really start putting on a good amount of weight. In this tank, we don't really have to spend as much time teaching them how to feed. In this tank, we can kind of throw the food in and they get it on their own. And so these guys here, and again, you might notice they're not too active, they're not moving around that much. These guys are super nocturnal. They spend most of their time sleeping all day, and then when I turn off the lights here at the aquarium, they have a party all night. They're going wild. They eat pretty much everything that we put in the tanks at night, which is really fun.
Beautiful. So Jesse wants to know, are these guys blind as babies?
So when they are first born, they can actually see. When they're still within the egg sac is when their eyes are still developing. They're blind for a period, but even when they're still within the egg sac, they do start to be able to see things, which is really cool. They're sensing, they can feel vibrations. If you guys go back and look at the video that Reagan did about shark senses, they start to use all those various senses and adaptations. They can sense electrical currents and vibrations and all those fun things even within the embryo, which I think is really cool.
Beautiful. And we have a question from Nancy too. She wants to know how the skate populations are doing within our bay.
So little skate populations in our bay is what we would call stable, sustainable. So their numbers are pretty strong. One thing that does happen, they are part of a fishery. This is what we would call a pretty healthy fishery. And the reason why we're calling this a healthy fishery is because we're able to take stuff out of the wild and use it for various things. So they use it for bait, they use it for food, for fertilizers, things like that. And their populations seem to remain pretty stable. But what that means is we got to keep a very close eye. We, meaning the government and various organizations, different scientists that research these guys, and make sure we're not taking too many out of the wild. It's all about a balance, all right? So we figured if we grow some here, put some more back out into the wild, that's not a bad thing, right? Because there's so many being taken out. It's great to put some back in, as well as being able to learn about them, which I think is really cool.
Beautiful. So Connor from Cherho Middle School is wondering how many eggs each female lays at a time.
So they will lay anywhere from 1 to 3 at a time, and they can do that anywhere from 1 time to 3 times a week. So they actually can lay just tons and tons of eggs. It kind of changes seasonally. Certain times of year they're going to be laying more, certain times of year they're going to be laying less. A lot of that's dependent on a few different external factors. Stress, diet, all those things are going to play into that. Excellent.
Beautiful. And we have a question from another Shea High School student. Shout out to them today for their great questions.
Thank you, Shea. Good job.
Do they need care from their mother like other animals, or can they survive and learn solo?
Yeah, so basically once the egg is laid, the female will never see it again. The last thing the female does for its young is it tries to place the egg in a pretty good spot where it thinks that, maybe it won't get hassled or eaten or anything like that. But once the shark lays out, it is so instinctual, or the skate, they have so many instincts, they almost immediately can start to eat. Our skating sharks, when they hatch out here, with a little bit of help, we're able to get them to eat almost immediately. That being said, we have so many young, right? Only 1 in 200 survive, right? So there's trade-offs with these different evolved ways of reproducing and performing the life cycle.
Beautiful. And we are starting to get a couple questions about the adult skates. So do you
guys want to see some?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so. All right, so take a look in here. This is our adult breeding tank here. So why don't we take a look right down here. We got a female coming by right now. So right here, this is one of our beautiful females. And when we are open, you'll actually be able to touch them just like I am. So this is one of our beautiful females here. You can see she's pretty plump. She might have some eggs coming soon. All right, and then you can see, we can look at the front. Oh, we just kind of missed it. We'll go back. So with our skate here, you can see she's got the tail. She's got her modified pectoral fins there that they use almost to walk. You can see she's kind of walking with them. They use them for locomotion a little bit. And they spend most of their time on the bottom of their habitat, just like you see. And you want to know what, guys? There's actually 5 skates in this tank here, but they're really good at camouflaging. They can actually bury their entire body. If we can find some more, maybe I'll dig some up as we're looking through here. We'll see if we can. Because right now, we're only seeing some females. That means there's a few males hanging out in here somewhere as well. So we'll see if we can find those guys in a little bit. Oh! What's this? Oh, that's a moon snail. Got a moon snail there, not a skate. I thought it was a skate. Okay, but the next thing I want to look at while we're in here too is we actually have some of our sharks here. And I don't know if you guys can see that there, but these are some of the adult cat sharks. And you know what, they don't get very big, they actually stay relatively small. So I'm gonna open up their cave here. I'm gonna wake them up, just because we have special guests today, you guys. And you can see right here. So we got a chain cat shark here, adult. They only get to be about 1.5 feet long when they're full grown, that's about it. Oh, the skate's getting jealous coming by. So our adult cat shark here, about 1.5 feet long. You can see there's another one here. Fun fact about cat sharks. The chain pattern on the back here is completely unique and individual for each one, just like a snowflake. They're all unique, like a snowflake, a thumbprint. You can identify the different ones just by looking at that chain-like pattern on the back here. I'll open up the rest of the cave so you can see if there's any more in here. Oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. The skate's still hanging out. And these guys, now I know one thing that Miss Reagan went over is that not all sharks are scary. Some of them are really, really sweet and nice and they really can't hurt you at all. These guys have no sharp, tearing teeth at all, like a great white or a large predatory shark. So they're totally safe to handle. So you can see I can actually pet them. They don't hurt me at all. So, and you can see the different body parts too. So if we look at this one here, you can see those are the gills right there. Now, sharks have multiple ways of breathing, okay? So some sharks have to swim all the time. So like a great white, they can't stop breathing. So that's called passive breathing. So the water has to move over their gills stay completely still, and the water moves over the gills and they absorb oxygen that way. You can actually see this guy right here is I don't know if you can see it, but I can see it. He's pumping his gills right now, and that's moving the oxygen over the gills so they can breathe. So these guys, they don't have to swim all the time. That's why a lot of times you see them on the bottom just like that. They're also nocturnal. So this little guy here, I'm just moving him around so you can see maybe he'll swim for us a little bit. There he goes. You can see they're just graceful swimmers, really amazing. Gosh, how cool are they? And you can see he's actually just swam over a whole bunch of eggs that have been laid in the past week too. That was cool. All right. Excellent. So why don't you guys observe them for a little bit? There's a few there to look at. I just had to grab something here. All right, guys, so special treat for you guys. We're gonna attempt to feed these guys a little bit. Now, normally these guys, they don't eat on Wednesdays. Today's a Wednesday. It's not really a day that they usually feed, so I don't know if they're gonna wake up and actually eat, but we're gonna give it a shot and see if any of them go for it. Fun thing about these guys feeding, the cat sharks and the skates are primarily scavengers. They do hunt a little bit, it's been proven, but they do great with scavenging. In the wild, these guys, they don't eat every day. They don't eat 3 meals a day like we do. They might only eat once a week, once a month, certain times a year. But when they do eat, they really engorge themselves. They eat a massive amount of food, and that sustains them for a while. After they eat all that food, they tend to kind of slow down, go to sleep, take a nap, which I think is just such a cool thing. All right, guys, so I'm gonna start throwing some food in. And today, you can see what we have. Let's see, I think that one's gonna go for it. That skate looks pretty hungry to me. Oh yeah! So you can see when the skate eats, it lands on top of its food, kind of like a carpet landing on a bug, and its mouth is underneath there, and it's chewing right now. You can also see behind that's his eyes, and behind the eyes, those are the spiracles, all right? So what those are, the oxygen goes underneath into the gills and then gets shot out, the spiracles there. Oh, you can see he's making that shark there wake up, and he just ate all that food I threw down there, so I'm gonna keep throwing some more. Actually, she. So why don't you guys watch the feeding here. Oh, there we go. Shark just grabbed some food. Highlight of my day, let me tell you. All right, man, keep throwing. Oh, a male just came out right over there. So that's a male skate over there. I don't know if you guys can see his claspers. Might be kind of hard from so far away, but maybe if I can tempt him over here with some food, he might come over. Yeah, you can see the claspers there on the back there. So the one long tail, the 2 short tails. Oh, there's another one that just came out. How cool is this? I don't know if you guys saw that one. Maybe he'll come around too.
Reagan wants to know how you tell the difference between a male and female shark.
So it's actually the same way. So a male shark is going to have claspers on the underside, the ventral side there. Now our sharks here have pretty small claspers, the males. The only way to see that is to really take them and flip them over. So if one comes by and I can flip them over, I'll show you guys, but most likely I'm going to let them kind of just do their thing. You see this guy's getting all beat up. Yeah, he doesn't want me to pick him up. We're gonna let him do his thing. Oh, that skate's really happy. He's got a piece of food in his mouth. He's swimming around.
Beautiful.
All right, guys. Well, that's all we have for today. Hopefully you guys had fun. Is there any last minute questions before we sign off here? Nope? All right, excellent, guys. That was a whole lot of fun. I hope everyone enjoyed what we did here today. If you thought it was fun, you like the work that we're doing here, you want to help support getting these guys back out into the wild, you're welcome to donate to Save the Bay. There should be a link right underneath there. But at the very least, we love teaching you guys about this stuff. We want you to know more about these things so you can help protect them in the future. So if you'd like, you can tune in with us again tomorrow at 10 a.m. for another edition of Breakfast by the Bay. Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful